No, so Conclave is Edward Berger, who did All Quiet on the Western Front 2 years ago, the German version. And this is basically legal thriller proceedings, but with trying to get a pope elected.
Yeah.
And the longer they're all stuck in the conclave, the more like dark secrets and like secret histories and things unlock. And I don't know, it's just really good. There's all these twists and turns, and Ray Fiennes is excellent. I think Stanley Tucci was just in Italy at the time, so they put him in it.
Yeah, I mean, that feels like the Stanley Tucci just like mode, right? You're like, if you ever ask yourself, where is Stanley Tucci? I assume he's in Italy at a coffee shop, just having a cappuccino in the morning.
But there were audible gasps in the theater. People were like hooting and hollering a little bit. It was really fun.
About a Pope movie?
Yeah.
Okay.
People,
all right.
People are fucking with the Pope movie.
Hello, passengers, and welcome aboard the TV Pilot's License with service to Los Feliz and your local shul. We ask that you please fasten your headphones, secure your podcasting device, and remember, a rabbi, a shiksa, and a lawyer walk onto a plane. But no doctors. Is there a doctor on board? If so, have you met my sister? She's single and Jewish.
Welcome to the TV Pilot's License. My name is Geoff Kerbis, joined by Rich Inman and Max Singer. How you boys doing today?
Jeff, I really didn't want to make a big issue about this, but I did request a kosher meal on today's flight. I'm going to eat it. I just thought you should know. I'm going to eat it.
Oh my gosh. Rich, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. I'm super excited that we have Max on the scene in Los Feliz to report live about this TV show.
Well, folks, we are talking about the recent Netflix sensation known as Nobody Wants This. But before we dive too deep into this pilot, Max, can you tell folks what the TV Pilot's License is all about?
Here at TV Pilot's License, we break down and analyze the pilot episodes of some of TV's most famous, or in some cases, infamous shows. We learn a little bit more about how these shows came to be and were originally made, if they're effective pilot episodes of making us want to watch more, and if we think they can be made today. Go back and stream our old episodes from wherever you listen to podcasts. Check us out on YouTube and TikTok to see our smiling faces. And if it is your first time flying with us, then welcome aboard.
And Rich, what is your question of the week?
So obviously this is the first time I've ever watched a rom-com that takes place over multiple episodes, like a full TV season. And I'd love to know if you could take one rom-com that you love that would be extremely ruined by the TV episode season format. What would you choose?
Rich, Max, also, I don't know if you guys know this. I am what I like to think of as a rom-com savant. I absolutely eat up rom-coms. I think that they are delicious, they are satisfying, and they leave me with a warm, fuzzy feeling. But in this instance, and since we are starting to approach the holiday season, I am going to talk about Love Actually. I think that Love Actually would be a terrible TV show because the entire premise revolves around seeing all of these stories happening all at once and seeing how they interlace with one another. And there's actually a pilot that we've got recommended to us called Mixology that I'm really excited to do because it tries to take that idea and put it into a rom-com TV show. And spoiler alert, Mixology did not do that well. So I think that also, as you said, a TV show that is based around a holiday is not going to do that well throughout the entire year.
All right, here's my pitch. It's a Hanukkah love story, and every episode is another night of Hanukkah.
Oh my God. Max, what about yourself?
All right, so we're getting into fall now when I start dressing like the protagonist of this rom-com that I love so much, and I think an awful TV show would be When Harry Met Sally.
Oh.
And a big part of the reason why is, I don't know if you remember, this movie takes place over the course of like a decade plus. It starts like a decade before we get to present day. And that's just too much time to encapsulate in a season of TV. It's just an absolutely insane way you would break it up. Also, there's random vignettes in the middle of this movie where old people tell you their cute stories and what love means to them. I don't even know how you keep the integrity of this plot while keeping those little vignettes in the TV show.
So, Max, a small challenge to that is there was that show based off of the movie One Day, right? That was super popular. Also,
you're talking about 24,
Netflix.
Right?
No, it's literally called it's
Jeff
called
Bauer
One Day.
Love Story.
And I'm curious from your perspective, like that did see some popularity, but it was also a mini series. So maybe there's like some in between of Harry Met Sally, but it's an only 5-episode limited release. I don't know.
Yeah. Now you're sounding like Paramount Plus.
Yeah, exactly. Paramount, send me the contract. I'll do it.
Rich, what about you?
I gotta go. Picture in your mind, if you will, Hawaii.
No.
Drew Barrymore, Adam Sandler, and a little movie I like to call 50 First Dates, because if you had an episodic TV show or serial episodic TV show involving 50 of the same days every single goddamn day, you would drive your audience completely insane. It would be an entirely different show.
Rich, I'm going to just say it. I could see your idea being made into a TV show out of all
I could see all of our ideas being made into a TV show. That's why Hollywood is broken.
I could see your idea. There is an executive listening right now to you, and they're there's 50 episodes. There's 50
trademarked.
episodes.
It's trademarked. I already did it.
There's 5 seasons of Netflix. We already have the Adam Sandler deal. Like, why not just put him into a TV show?
Rich just pitched Oops All Pilots.
It's the final culmination of what this podcast was going to.
Oh my god! Well, Rich, thank you so much for your question of the week.
That was Pan Am, actually, Max. Oops, all pilots.
Let's talk a little bit more about Nobody Wants This. And we're going to start off with a quick synopsis. An agnostic sex podcaster and a newly single rabbi fall in love, discovering if their relationships survive their wildly different lives and meddling families. Well, the grammar sucked on that. Thanks, IMDb. But Max, how did this show get made?
Yeah, nobody proofread this. Today we're talking about the pilot episodes of Nobody Wants This, which originally aired on September 26, 2004 on Netflix.
Wow,
we're talking about the show's creator today, Aaron Foster. Aaron Foster is an actor, writer, podcaster, and at one point the co-creative head of the dating app Bumble. The daughter of music executive David Foster, she came up as an actress in the early 2000s with roles on shows including Gilmore Girls and The O.C. She serves as a staff writer on Ryan Murphy's NBC sitcom The New Normal and created the VH1 mockumentary series Barely Famous alongside her sister Sarah. Aaron and her sister host a successful podcast, the world's first podcast with Aaron and Sarah Foster. Nobody Wants This is very much based on Aaron's own romantic life, her marriage to her husband Simon, and her own conversion to Judaism. She calls the show a love letter to her husband, and many moments of the show, both the romantic and the awkward, are inspired by real stories related to their relationship. The show was originally sold to Fox with the intention of it being made for Hulu, with Foster's husband Simon saying he didn't even know there was a show happening and was initially freaked out by the idea. The pilot would be Foster's second developed at Fox, after a show in 2018 called Daddy Issues starring Don Johnson, which failed to be picked up the series. At the suggestion of executive producer Steve Levitan, best known for Modern Family and Just Shoot Me, the love interest was changed to a rabbi to raise the stakes and create separation from her actual husband. Fox/Hulu/Disney/maybe ESPN pass on the show, but they're able to sell the concept to Netflix, who greenlight it in March of 2023. Today's pilot is directed by Greg Mottola, best known for helming Superbad and Adventureland, along with Undeclared and Arrested Development for TV.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about this pilot in depth. And Max, we start off in your neighborhood. You're the on-the-scene reporter. There's a big old sign, and I want to know, as well as the audience, without doxing yourself, how accurate of a description is this of Los Feliz?
Max is in the TV pilot's license AccuWeather chopper right now.
I want to paint a picture first. We start off, the cameras roll, and we're blasting Haim, which is kind of like when you blast CCR to let people know you're in Vietnam. When you play Haim, we know that we're in Los Angeles. So we open on actress Kristen Bell, who plays Joanne, and she exits Mirate, a trendy Mexican restaurant on Vermont that has $20 margaritas, and then she makes a left onto a street that would not actually be there if she made a left. If she went left, she would have had to pass by an abandoned Starbucks. This is actually the street above the Mexican restaurant she exits for.
Wow.
This restaurant is also right next door to High Tops, in case this is familiar to you.
Yeah.
That is our Los Feliz corner. Thank you so much, Matt.
It's like I'm there.
Check back in with me like 3 more times throughout this episode.
What did you both think about us kicking off this episode by getting a little bit of a perspective of an exposition via bad date ghosting? Because I'm interested because I think Kristen Bell is a strong enough actress and has a history of playing, let's just be honest, people who are initially seen as despicable, aka The Good Place, and somehow charming the audience into being like, that's right, she should be despicable. That person sucks. So I'm curious from both of you, how did you feel meeting Kristen Bell's character?
I definitely immediately connected it to The Good Place in the sense that, like, oh, she's like jaded about dating to the point where she's gonna tear into some dudes that she agreed to go on a date with for kind of not that high of a misdemeanor, I would say. That the initially she's complaining about a date that she was on for all of 30 minutes where the guy talked about his grandmother who just recently passed away, which is like, all right, I don't think that's that crazy that the guy loves his family. I don't know. I probably wouldn't do that 30 minutes into a first date, but if that guy loves his grandmother, that's a green flag to me, I think.
Well, I think that he loved his grandmother, and Max, correct me if I'm wrong here, who died 12 years ago. Did I only hear that joke incorrectly?
Yeah, it seems
it was
like
12
it was
years ago.
Yeah, it was a longer time. Either he was 12 or it was 12 years ago, or something like that. I think we do a pretty good job up top giving you just a broad stroke idea about who this character of Joanne is. We first meet her kind of kvetching about men in the dating world. We get a good idea about like relationship and age, and then we kind of cut to this sex and relationship podcast hosting scene. So now we know what they do for work, and we see they're good at their jobs.
Because they get a call at a restaurant.
Yeah, I mean,
saying you got the money.
I think that one of the strongest parts about this pilot is, and what we'll come to see is there's almost a core 4 that we're going to focus on throughout this pilot, and it's siblings.
To steal a piece of terminology from Adam Brody's The OC, we are going to be dealing with the core 4 a lot today.
Yes, we're going to be dealing with the core 4 a lot. And like, I really like the performance and the chemistry from Kristen Bell and Justine Lupe, who plays Morgan in this instance, the sister, because it is very much such a great description. There's a description of her character later in the show where it's like, she's my best friend and my worst enemy. And I'm like, yeah, that chemistry, that description, all of that sort of has me bought in of, I'd like to learn a little bit more and see a little bit more of the sibling chemistry develop.
I think because it's not a podcast I would listen to. I think all the dating and podcasts are just kind of like the first person dating podcasts are very boring to me. I don't know why. It's just like it just hasn't hit for me, so I'm still not bought in yet here. Max, what are you feeling?
Rich, let's play a little game. What would be a podcast topic that you'd be more interested in that would catch your attention as this being their job?
Probably the first episodes of TV shows, just so we can see the world building and see really where the show goes from there. If it becomes like an infamous or famous pilot, let's say.
But I'll be totally honest. I know that this show is fiction because am I wrong? They said they make money from podcasting, like it's their job.
That's not real.
I don't know.
Yeah, no. Someone prove us wrong in the comments. Call us. We'd be happy to take your money.
Someone from Spotify prove us wrong in the comments.
Yeah, we make so little money off of this. We actually we record each individual part separate from each other and then try to fill in the conversation together.
We try to guess each other. This is a blind podcast. Well, let's talk about our other duo, our other set of siblings, and we meet Noah and Sasha, who are also having a very sibling-esque conversation, talking about how Sasha has to stop getting his hair cut by his mother, which extremely funny. But seeing Adam Brody and Timothy Simmons 2 weeks
back
in a row,
back.
Yeah, like absolutely destroying.
Big Tim Sim podcast over here.
But I like that this sets up our issue of the podcast, or at least our initial issue of why is this day different? Well, Noah's girlfriend has decided that she is engaged to Noah without Noah knowing that she's engaged to her, or he's engaged to her. There we go. Max, I would love to learn from your perspective of what do you think of the politics of just finding an engagement ring and saying dibs?
I think it's more the question of finding a key to a drawer in which you found that key, you find that drawer, you unlock the drawer, then you find a ring in the box in the drawer. I think that this is it's interesting to play rom-com tropes in this sort of modern, realistic way of doing TV. Now, like a lot of these miniseries, a lot of these Netflix comedies, they want to play it very realistic, but rom-com stuff is super broad. It's super over the top. And there is something very interesting about, if this were a thing that was made 20 years ago, we would have seen her finding the key, finding the drawer, finding the ring. It would have been this real spectacle. It would have been a whole set piece. And now it's kind of just something that we get told, but it feels like a throwback to older mainstream romantic comedies, which I appreciate it being the plot device. It would have been very easy to just say, I don't think this is working anymore. I don't see this being a forever thing, and just kind of dissolving it super naturalistic. But to do it through a kind of one-sided hijink, I think it gives some heft to this show. It gives some heft to this plot.
Rich, what about yourself?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, I do enjoy the Adam Brody's internal thought process of no, love can't just be this checklist of things that you get done with, and it makes me feel like feel sorry for all the people who feel very pressured by anyone, by their family or anything like that, to check off certain things for their romantic life. I very much did enjoy that. It gave us a little bit more insight into Adam Brody's actual sentimentality. And also, Max, did you catch where they got takeout from? Oh,
no.
You didn't recognize the brown paper packaging on that wrap? That's clearly from Spitz.
Oh.
The Spitz Mediterranean shout out on our show. I'm Spitz, if you're hearing this, we want free food.
Yeah, please sponsor us. I don't even live in LA, and I'd like Spitz. So I think one of the things that appeals to me about this show is when I say it almost feels like they're separate scenes that somehow interlude or somehow are woven together. It does sort of feel like that with this pilot, since our two sets of characters, our eventual love interests, haven't met yet. And we have this dinner scene with the parents. And this is one of my favorite scenes in this show and in this episode, because I think Michael Hitchcock steals the scene as the dad of these two sisters. I think the parents in this scene steal the scene. Stephanie Ferrasi as the mother, talking about how her doctor gave her bad news. That. This is just such a well-written instance where I'm like, oh, we haven't even gotten to the main characters meeting yet, and I'm falling in love with this family and want just a show about them.
Two things really quick. Michael Hitchcock also in The New Normal, where Erin Foster is a staff writer. So, she's got her boys, she's got her dudes that she's keeping employed. Michael Hitchcock.
Is Hitchcock attached? Because then we're doing it. We're running with this football.
Also, this dinner scene takes place at a restaurant called Atrium, rest in peace, which is a vaguely American-themed restaurant on Vermont Avenue in Los Feliz.
Vaguely American?
As far as, moving this pilot forward, right? It's interesting because I'm looking at my notes and there's not much that we deal with because we have our main characters meeting via a dinner party, which just seems very civilian almost. It seems if you said, what was the meet cute of our characters? And I was like, a dinner party. It's very normal. It's not anything spectacular or out of the norm. Like when you hear about how the Erin Foster met her husband Simon, they met at the gym. In LA, and she saw him and went into his DMs.
Boring.
And it's just it's very, very, it's just so innocent.
Yeah.
But then watching this scene, I think that the chemistry that we see between Adam Brody and Kristen Bell is off the charts. I think they instantly connect. And I at least me, watching this pilot for, spoiler alert, the second time, was just yep, I'm in. I want to see these two. I want to see them buy a couch and see what happens there.
Yeah, this dinner party tete-a-tete is really where this show starts to get the wheels turning. All this little banter between the two of them, this whole flirtation over the wine bottle, him corking it and saying he used to be a Somm and that's his embarrassing story. This whole mistaken identity about being told that there's going to be 3 types of guys that she should be at this dinner party. One's an asshole, one's a rabbi. I don't remember the third. And she mistakes
finance guy
and
who was divorced.
And she mistakes the rabbi and the asshole for each other.
Yep.
There's a great line from Joanne's best friend / podcast manager, Ashley, played by Sherry Cola, where she says there isn't a Jewish bone in Joanne's body unless you put one in her.
Her name is Cherry Cola?
Sherry Cola.
Oh.
Rich has soft drinks on the brain.
That's right. That's right. I'm going up for our nice big pop after this.
This show definitely has lines that stick out and shine because they're just very well delivered. But Rich, I want to hear from you. What were your thoughts? Were you buying into this relationship or the concept of this relationship at this dinner party?
I think the problem that I have with rom-coms in general is that all of the actual process of falling in love is not through a quick series of one-liners, and it never has been. And it's very I don't know. It just it feels almost every rom-com, I think, except for When Harry Met Sally, feels so inelegant or I'm sorry, not it's just too packaged, it's too put together, it's too pretty, it's it doesn't really show a lot of the ugliness of or tedium of actually meeting someone and actually getting to know them. And I guess I'm just the wrong audience for it personally. It's just it's that I don't like the sap. I think the sap is not genuine.
Well, maybe I have another question that you can give me a better answer for, because as we see these characters starting to hit it off, we find out that Joanne is going to leave the party and Noah offers to walk her to her car, which is downhill. And Rich, is that considered a California hike because it's going down a slight hill and it takes a couple minutes?
Had they shown his trip back up to his own car, then yes, that would have counted as a California hike.
I gotta tell you, man, I was just taking a walk the other week around Los Feliz, and I was going up some of those hills north of Los Feliz Boulevard, and my quads were on fire. So him just doing this in jeans just to make sure she got to her car safely, good on him. There is a moment at this dinner party, though, where this is the first instance where I'm like, man, I kind of wish this was just regular old network TV. And it's when Adam Brody hits the joint, puffs it out, and says, I'm the rabbi. And all I want at that moment is a cut to commercial. I want it so bad. Yeah. I want that to be a button line. And it's not. It just keeps flowing. But there's such an old school sitcom where it'd be wow, 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 where that we could have had that.
The two characters with their arms folded, rotating underneath. Oh, sorry. The two characters with their arms folded, rotating underneath.
Oh my god. Well, one of the things that I think is interesting, and Rich, you sort of brought up a great point of like relationships aren't just based off of one-liners. They take time to develop. Interest has to sort of build up. It's a little bit like a slow cooker, and we get that via a montage of seeing two people constantly thinking about the other, even though they've only met one time.
And we play a second Haim song just to let you know that we're still in Los Angeles.
What happens if they play another song, Max? Do you think they've somehow escaped Los Angeles?
Then we use that to tell the audience the location has shifted. I really like that we have a montage set to Haim, because when the Haim sisters sing "And Now I'm in It," we show the two characters can't stop thinking about each other. It being the relationship, and in it being into each other.
So let's talk a little bit about our final scene of this show, because we end up in Temple because Noah is taking over for...
Oh, you skipped over another closed Los Feliz bar.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right, let's backtrack to this this previous location, this now permanently closed Google Maps location.
Oh my god.
Joanne goes on another blind date at a bar called Pinky's, R.I.P. It was across the alleyway from Atrium. I'm pretty sure they're owned by the same people. They had a good espresso martini. Rest in peace.
Okay. Thank you, Max. So let's talk about going to Temple. And specifically, I'm more interested in hearing your thoughts of having this moment where we hear a sermon from Noah. And I personally... I was looking back and I was like, when was the last time we heard like a sermon? And it was Seventh Heaven. And I was like,
this is better.
I don't want to talk about that. But I do want to talk about the message of everything can have a purpose if you let it. And are you buying that, or are you taking that as like, I've heard better sermons? Because personally, I was like, you know what? That's a pretty decent sermon. And I'd be a little bit bought in on that if I heard that on a Friday night.
I'll tell you what, there is nothing in the Jewish religion, or at least as far as I've seen, that says you're a bad Jew for not going to temple. And you want to bring some people in with compelling stories, and you don't want to, it's like when you go to an improv show at UCB and half the crowd is like students fulfilling their requirements. So that like they're kind of goosing up the numbers there. This is like, I don't know. This is like compelling. People are he's like actually bringing a crowd in. I do remember some like pretty good services at my temple where people had actually had decent stories, and this is good. I mean, they do shorten it to be the absolute shortest sermon ever told.
A+.
Yeah, and if there's one thing about going to temple is that you want to leave as soon as you get there.
Max, what about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, first off, this is an absolutely gorgeous temple we're at for Shabbat services.
Oh, yeah.
Good Lord, this is so nice.
Max, I'm surprised you don't have the exact temple and location it was.
I'm not surprised.
I can tell you what, it's not in Los Feliz.
Yeah. What's their espresso martini situation like at this temple next?
But Adam Brody as Noah does give this kind of cool, like, youth group rabbi kind of mentality. He's the new generation. He's stepping in for the older head rabbi who can't be there this week. And this is sort of a, passing of the baton. It's opportunity for the next generation to step up. And I think it's compelling. We do get a very just like cliche cinematography moment in here where Joanne crashes Shabbat service. Not crashes, but attends Shabbat services to try to see Noah and talk to him, where everyone else is in like very dark blues, blacks. It's a lot of like white and cream. A lot of the background is very neutral. And then we just pop her into the middle of frame, dead center in all bright red. And it's like, oh, and that's how we know she's important in this scene.
Or has never been to a temple before.
I think that one of the things that I find very interesting about this is I've always been curious about depiction of the Jewish faith in media, right? And I know there's going to be someone who says the joke, well, like, why? Because the Jews control the media, but they do a really poor job of portraying their own religion. Like, please name me more shows other than Rugrats, because that does not count. That show real life.
Oh, why doesn't it count?
Because it's animated, Rich. If it can't win a primetime Emmy, it doesn't count. But
Wow.
I think that this is interesting, and it sort of destigmatizes, or at least it's trying to, right now, via Noah's sermon, destigmatize the concept of what does a rabbi have to be. Because even in the example of Joanne's character mistaking the asshole for the rabbi because it's a older man with a beard, is like, it's interesting to me. And I'm curious, you two also being Jewish men, what you thought of like this sort of initial depiction of Judaism on this show, being that's just the pilot.
It does a good job of setting up this concept of the old guard versus the new guard. And we do it really well in these final kind of shots here, because Noah is the new guard. He's not going to do things by a checklist. He's not going to bow down to the wishes necessarily of just family. He's going to give a slightly more progressive leaning on his Shabbat service speeches. And even at the end, when everyone's kind of gathered in the lobby afterwards, there's nosh and tea, and you can kind of mingle, and everyone's introducing themselves and their daughters and granddaughters to Noah because word's gotten out that he's single, and everyone's
trying to bag this rabbi.
Yeah,
they sort of like weaponize their faith in a way back at Noah, where his mom says a shiksa, and that's the final like words before we cut to black. And so it does really set up this idea of a more contemporary leading and like pushing past the old days and the old tropes.
So that's our pilot. It does end with that ashiksa line, which, Rich, I feel like you have some thoughts on that being our ending line.
I just did not. This like, I didn't want to hate the mom immediately, but it felt stereotypical to hate the mom. They make Jewish women in media so fucking combative, and it just like drives me insane sometimes. And this being the last line was just like, it's so camp theater shit. It's just like, oh, okay. Number one, you don't know that. You can't tell she's not Jewish.
Really? Rich,
Rich,
wait a moment. Wait a minute, Rich.
Yeah, Rich, tell me with your full
blonde.
chest.
My mom's blonde. She's Jewish.
With your full chest that you would look at Kristen Bell and be like, you know what? I definitely think she had a Haftorah portion.
Jeff,
like tell me.
Here's the difference between you and I, Jeff. I think a Jew can look like anything.
Oh my God, that's the clip. That's the tagline of the episode. I guess with this being the end of our pilot, I'm curious, what were some things that you loved about this pilot that maybe you'd like to give a little bit more shine? Max, I'm going to ask you to stray away from closed Los Feliz bar locations and try to give something about the actual show.
Lean in.
No, we won't talk anymore about Vermont Avenue bars and restaurants, but if you want to, if any listeners want to grab a drink, you let me know.
Sign up for Max's Bar Crawl.
I want to give a shout out to just this core four and their banter and the way they interact and setting up this world where, because we're getting pairs, we're automatically telling the audience that they're going to cross, and we're going to create different connections of how they can interact. We're going to have this grid where we know there's going to be scenes between every sort of configuration from this four, and they're all great. I didn't know we were going to do back-to-back Timothy Simons weeks here on TVPL, but he's very funny in this. I'm a big Justine Lupe fan, and she gets to let loose a little bit more than I would say she does in Secession or Maisel, and she's very good at both of those, but she really gets some stuff to sink her teeth into here. The way that they handle this dialogue, the way they interact with each other, the relationships and the chemistry they have, that's what makes this show, and that's what's going to make you want to keep watching. I think more than anything else is just how you relate to those four.
Rich, what about yourself?
So I think they did a pretty good job of like getting through the first act of a rom-com, like, the meet cute, the developing relationship and conflict, or the thing that threatens the relationship, and then solving it and happily ever after, yada yada. But we did not even glance over some of the best quotes from this movie, from this quotes of this TV show. Say something rabbinical. There's a fiddler on the roof. what like actually made me drop my computer for a second, because I was like kind of in disbelief that they actually did that. There is also, let's see what else. It's very trendy to be gay these days, which was the excuse the mom gives Michael Hitchcock for being gay and ignoring it for 37 years. And then one more sincere line from Adam Brody of baked into the Jewish experience is wrestling with what God is or isn't, which I thought was like something very very easy to connect to in like being Jewish. And like, yeah, I felt that was like a pretty like it, the only comparisons that I see of people like actually like practicing their Judaism is like on Curb Your Enthusiasm, where they go to a temple where they hate, or on Entourage that they go to a temple that they hate, etc. And yeah, it was cool to see. What about you, Geoff?
I love that this show has heart, if that makes sense. Like, I think that it is something where I see all of these characters and I see all of these siblings and parents and all that, and I see that there is genuine, or I feel that there's genuine love for the character that they are talking to, sitting across from, interacting with. And like the other example, I'll go back to the sermon, right? Like, someone could have mailed that in. Someone in the writing room could have like been like, all right, like let's figure out a sermon, and maybe we don't even do it really. Maybe we like, oh, she's sitting there, he just finished the sermon, and he says like, and thank you for coming, and then you see her in the background. Like there's so many Hallmark movies where they do that bullshit. But they actually, someone sat down and was like, no, we're going to make this like something meaningful that is going to stick with people. And I love that. I think that this show really probably takes pride in the idea of how much, like, even though there are some obscene lines in this show, and like, let me be clear, this is not like the show you show your parents or your entire family and be like, let's sit down and watch Nobody Wants This. But there's something about that I'm like, oh, that makes it super easy for me to be like, yeah, that's an easy, let's possibly watch this some more. Let's talk about wait a minute moments. And I have one in particular. When the group of women at Noah's Temple are trying to hook him up, one of them says, oh, do you remember my daughter? She just got over shingles. And I would like to say that is the worst thing that you could possibly tell me if you were trying to hook me up with your daughter. She got shingles. And
hey, she's over it. It's in the past.
Well, no, that's the thing. I feel
like your failed engagement.
Well, she won't get it again anytime soon. So, like, that's something you don't have to experience. I'm curious, Max and Rich, what about you?
Biggest thing for me is I am just sick of the 8-hour movie when it comes to TV shows. And there's something about Nobody Wants This where I just either want it to be an hour and 45 rom-com, or I want it to be a true like TV show. And I don't know if the way that it's structured, where you're only getting this little bit of plot at a time and it's one big movie, lends itself to rewatchability, which I think you almost need when you have sitcoms. And I wish it had more moments that stand on its own. I have watched this entire show already, so this was a rewatch for me. And I felt it the first time. I really felt it the second time. The main four is so strong and they are so charismatic together. But I just want TV that feels like TV, especially when it's working in this kind of lighthearted vein. And I don't know, there's just something about leaning into it's streaming, so you're going to hit next regardless, and it's all just binging. It doesn't feel like I can talk about it an episode at a time. It doesn't feel like I want to go back and rewatch just certain moments or certain episodes.
Rich, what about yourself?
I actually this definitely ties into Max's wait a minute on this, because I don't think, and this is probably because of this 10 episode format kind of thing, I don't think we know enough about Kristen Bell or Adam Brody's characters at all yet. Like I do not know their points of view. I don't know what led them there. I just know that and I think having a hard time dating is just such a trope now, and like I don't think that in the same sense that like putting stand-up comedy, having a character do stand-up comedy in a TV show is literally never going to be funny because stand-up comedy is contextual. I feel the same about the podcast. The podcast does nothing for me, and it's just like a little bit of an exposition dump. But frankly, because of this, like I think it's like one of the weaker pilots we've done just because we don't know anything about anybody yet.
Interesting. Well, we do have 2 more questions because this is the first time we're actually doing 2 in-flight questions in our episode. And we'll talk a little bit more about how to submit those because there's a variety of ways. But our first one
Wait, Geoff, in honor of the rabbi, shouldn't we be doing the 4 questions?
God damn it.
I don't have 4, unfortunately. But I do have 2. And the first one comes from Alex in St. Paul, Minnesota. And she says, what co-star from Adam Brody or Kristen Bell's past TV history would you like to see on the cast of season 2 of Nobody Wants This? Because this show did get after like 1 or like a week and a half, it got a renewal for a second season on Netflix. So I'm curious, gentlemen, so I'll let you go first.
For clarification, this is the character, not the actor. Or do we want the actor, not the character?
I would like you to pitch an actor you would like to see as a character in this show.
Okay, an actor. Okay. I guess mine's the same answer. It's Manny Jacinto, baby. Give me some Jason Mendoza in the script. I need it bad.
Oh my gosh. Max, what about yourself?
You know, for all of the TV history that these two have together, unfortunately, Rich and I both drew inspiration from the exact same show.
Fuck yeah.
And we both went good place, but I'm going a different direction. And so both Timothy Simons and Nick Kroll have dramatic roles in Don't Worry, Darling. Mm-hmm. And Nick Kroll also played like a dramatic lawyer in that movie Loving a couple years ago from Jeff Nichols. And I was just thinking about who from that ilk, who from that world do I want to see play a
Ted
more
Danson.
Grounded, dramatic type of role? And the answer that jumped out to me was Jason Mantzoukas. I want to see him play against type and just play a more mature adult role, zero screaming. I don't know why. I feel like he'd just be really good at like LA guy in late 30s to mid 40s in this world. He could do something with the brother. I don't know. And
just like every 30 something at UCB in the early 2000s, Max, can Jason Mantzoukas make me cry is on everybody's lips.
So I actually had 2 for this because I was trying to think of like what would be a storyline I'd be super interested in for season 2 of this show, assuming I only watched the pilot, right? And the first one was Nick Kroll, because Nick Kroll actually starred against Kristen Bell technically in Big Mouth. They both were in that show, so like one, I would love seeing him as a rabbi from a different temple that's thinking about taking Noah's job. But then I was also like, Adam Brody needs some love. And I had this in my back pocket because I thought Max was going to pick an Adam Brody thing. But Adam Brody was in the Gilmore Girls for a couple of episodes. Mm-hmm. And he was playing against Alexis Bledel. And I think Alexis would be a very great actress choice to come in as a different woman that Joanne has to be jealous of for a little bit. That might stir some trouble in the relationship. What's the worst one you could think of? What's the worst? Like,
I don't know who played the snowman in Frozen. who played Olaf?
Oh my gosh! But
because the worst one for me is Adam Brody's season 4 of the OC co-star Chris Pratt, because who is the natural enemy of the rabbi, but the conservative Christian?
We have a Hillsong preacher in this in the script.
I was personally going to say I don't want to see Russell Brand in this show no matter what, but
I would 100% agree with that.
I don't want to see him in this show, and please do not invite him. But we do have a second in-flight question, and I do want to get to it. And this in-flight question comes from Jenny in San Francisco. Can Hot Rabbi, which is a nickname, Rich, that Noah's character does receive later in the show, compete with Fleabag's Hot Priest? So this is a very specific question for someone who might have seen both of these shows.
Mm-hmm.
And personally,
we recommend you do.
Personally, I will say that I am having a very hard time choosing because they both scratch very different itches for me.
Okay.
And that is my personal decision. And please, I will not be taking comments. Rich, what about yourself?
I don't think anything tops Andrew Scott. I'm sorry. It's just like Adam Brody can smolder as much as he wants in this, but my God, there's nothing better than Andrew Scott as the hot priest.
Max, is someone whose spouse thinks you sort of look like one of these characters. Are you going to choose that character?
So we're going to break it down really quick. If we're just talking about the characters themselves, one of them can have sex without feeling as much guilt as the other one. That's definitely a point for Adam Brody.
No, it makes it hotter.
Then you got to kind of pick your poison. What's your vice? Are you more of a canned gin and tonic guy? Are you more of a red wine and smoking weed outdoors kind of guy? Listen, there's a much more chilled, laid-back, attractive vibe to Noah, Hot Rabbi, in this show. It's a different vibe, but I think he could go toe for toe.
Well, there is your answer. And as far as sending in-flight questions, we'll talk about how to submit those at the end of the show.
Those are just anti-Catholic.
Yeah, that's definitely me, the Jew. But let's talk a little bit about the history of the show, and it's pretty short and simple. There's one season of the show and 10 episodes. There was something interesting in my research about how some people said that this show was anti-Jewish because of how they depicted Jewish women in being marriage crazy.
Did I write this?
Personally, I think that's a little bit like you watch the pilot and maybe you need to watch a little bit more and enjoy a little bit more of this show. But that's just me. It was fun doing this because this was actually a fan suggestion for us to do. So it's always fun to do something a little bit more current. And yeah, the show's getting a second season, so we're excited to see what happens in season 2 of this show. Who knows what will happen? But yeah, that is the history of the show. That's the shortest history I have ever done.
And how?
Rich, it is time for your game of the week.
Well, I was gonna start off with trying to give you guys Talmud trivia, but then I got bored. So instead, what
Los Feliz bars, yeah,
yeah. Jeff, you can log off. This one's just for Max. Instead, I'm gonna give you a cage match of 2 Jewish celebrities, and you have to tell me which one you think will win.
Oh my God.
In a bare knuckle brawl. No weapons, no leaving the cage.
This is the violent version of the Hanukkah song by Adam Sandler.
Now, round 1, we got the funny girl round. Is Barbara Streisand versus Beanie Feldstein. Who do you think is taking home the belt?
Oh, Beanie's got this in the bag. I'm just going to tell you right now, I feel like Beanie could beat the absolute shit out of Barbara. And I love Barbara. Trust me, I love a diva, but like I think that Beanie has got this based off of some of her most recent history that I've seen.
Not a chance. She's going to get her with a cross and say, "Papa, can you hear me? I'm going Babs."
If this is the 1970s, I would say absolutely Babs, but this is, but I cannot take anyone seriously in a fight when I know you have a mall inside your house. This one's going to Beanie Feldstein. All right. Round 2, we got 90s. Round 2, we got 90 stars. Jason Alexander versus David Schwimmer. Who do you got?
Oh, Schwimmer's got reach.
Yeah, I was just about to say, Schwimmer's got the reach. Even though Jason Alexander has many, many talents, I think that Schwimmer's got the reach on him. But if Alexander can get low and take Schwimmer off of his feet, I think we've got a match right now.
Yeah, I'm going center of gravity on this one. I'm thinking Jason Alexander's got the scrappiness to make it. All right, third and final round. It's the pretending to be Jewish round. It's Rachel Brosnahan versus Rachel Sennett. Who is your favorite Shiksa pretending to be a Jew?
Max, you can start this one off for us.
Oh God, I mean, if we're going just on like straight like street fighting skills, I got to give the edge to Sennett here.
Oh, interesting.
Did we not all see Bottoms?
That's true. You're right. You're right. She is fight choreo trained.
Yeah, and like also seeing Rachel Sennett in Bodies, I feel like that there's a certain little fear factor that she can bring to the stage. So yeah, they call fighting arenas stages, right? That's not me showing that I'm a theater kid.
I think this one's going to a tie. I think it's two NYU kids, and they're gonna complain before they actually fight.
Oh my gosh,
this one's over before it begins.
Well,
yeah, thank you so much for playing Jewish Celebrity Deathmatch.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, hopefully renewed for another season sometime soon. Well, gentlemen, this flight is soon to be coming to a land, but before we do so, I'd love to hear from you two. Based off of the pilot and the pilot alone, would you continue watching this show? And secondly, this show did get renewed for a season 2, and I think that a lot of people are super excited about it, but I mean, I'm curious if you think that there is a place for this sort of show, this sort of extended rom-com. Max, it's just filling up your streaming services, and I know you just want more. You want more Great British Bake Off, so that there's less of this. But tell me, what are you two thinking? Max, I'll let you start.
Yeah, I think this one gets a yes for me with watching more. Just going back and rewatching it off of chemistry and charisma alone. There is such an undeniable chemistry amongst its big quartet in this show that can carry this into another episode for me. As to your second question, Geoff, what I want are just more fucking rom-coms. What I want are studio releases for $20 million rom-coms that come out throughout the year that are 90 minutes of pure entertainment. I don't need things to get dumped off onto streaming services that are 8 to 10 hour movies. And I do struggle to see how I can find another 8-hour movie for season 2 to be as captivating the second time around. I just want people to make rom-coms again.
So your answer was yes, but also no?
Yeah, I think we can translate that answer as that
in classic Jewish fashion.
Yeah, that's like yes, but stop it, stop that shit.
Rich, what about yourself?
I think the only reason I'm giving this a second episode is because it has people that I like in it. Yay! That is the entirety of Hollywood now. It's just whoever people have a good Q score for, that's going to be the entirety of the movie. I just thinking about the fact that this is like 8 hours long gives me the heebie-jeebies, which is short for Hebrews Jeepers, and I am
God damn.
so I can give it a second episode, but God, I don't think I want a second season of this. That's crazy.
For myself, yeah, I've already watched all of this show. This is the second time I've watched this pilot. The first time I watched this pilot, I shit you not, it was like 11 o'clock at night, and I was like, I guess I'm not getting much sleep tonight, and I watched the second and third episode right after. This show has everything I need in a show, and that is not saying much because I watch everything, but it's also saying a lot because I adore this show. When I heard it got its second season, I'm really excited because, Maxwell, I agree that there's so much hunger for good rom-coms that are well produced and very similar to the rom-coms like I grew up with rom-coms of the 80s and 90s and like a couple from the 2000s. But this is one that I think is so special, and I hope has people yearning for more feature-length rom-coms rather than just a TV show. And a rom-com doesn't need to be that expensive. I'm going to watch all the Hallmark movies that come up, and those are basically all rom-coms, and they cost like $2 plus a hotel stay. So, are you really? Are you really going to watch this? Yeah. Don't you worry, baby. I'll get you a nice list that you can start off with.
Do you have just like an NFL red zone set up in your house that you just like consume all these things? I'm just like shocked. Whatever we go through about picking a show or talking about any type of like media, it's like shocking when Geoff hasn't seen it.
Wait, Geoff, really quick, what are your thoughts on the actor who's playing the fake version of Travis Kelce in that Hallmark Christmas movie this year, also playing Rob Gronkowski in American Sports Story?
What?
The thing that I want to talk about even more than that, Max, is the idea that the Hallmark Channel was like, you know what? We need more eyes, so we're going to have a reality TV show where we have attractive men of varying forms compete to be the star of a Hallmark movie. Yes, Rich, that's a real fucking thing. They have 12 men competing to be the star of an upcoming Hallmark movie.
Who can have the most generic face?
And it's like they're doing like who can do the best meet cute with like 30 seconds prep. They're not in charge of writing. They're the actors. Like, please let these men just do a normal audition.
Wait, Max, are you telling me that there's one guy who's cornering the tight end community in Hollywood right now?
Cornering the tight end depiction community.
Well, they shouldn't be cornering. They should at least put a linebacker on him.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you went in that direction instead of the tight end aspect.
Well, gentlemen, that is our flight. But before we go, where can folks find you? Max, where can folks find you?
Vermont Avenue, and on all things social. And on all things social media at Maxwell Sing. You can find original sketch comedy for myself and Rich over on TikTok at Dadwagon Comedy.
Rich, where can folks find you?
You can find me in your house digging around for engagement rings, and you can also find me on Instagram at Damn That's Rich.
And you can find me with many Jewish bones in my body, but you can also put one there.
Oh, whoa, hold on. Whoa, Geoff's trying to corner the tight end community.
But if you're looking for me on social media, you can find me at Run Jeff Run. If you're looking for the TV Pilot's License, you can find us anywhere you listen to podcasts, as well as see our smiling faces on YouTube. If you have a question about the show or for our next episode, you can actually fill out our in-flight question form on tvpilotslicense.com or give us a call at 213-290-1713 and leave us a voicemail. Make sure to watch out for our Instagram for a sneak preview of some of our upcoming episodes. But with the plane landed and the seatbelt sign off, we look forward to flying the bright skies of the TV world with you again. And until then,
Geoff's never beaten those allegations
on the roof.